I am sure that you are all very well aware at this point that a federal justice court, Richard Mosley, has ruled against the government of Canada on their use of the Emergencies Act to crack down on the Freedom Convoy protests in Ottawa back in January and February of 2022. Although the judge did say that yes, there were certain aspects of the protests that were illegal, and nobody would doubt that you can't just park trucks on the street for days on end without incurring some sort of fines, which the convoy leaders were perfectly fine with paying off in order to keep the trucks there as long as possible, that the government cannot just willy-nilly declare an emergency because they don't happen to like the tone or tenor of a protest. The Freedom Convoy itself being kind of like a music festival, very happy and lively, not that many angry people, mostly people just having a laugh at the government's expense, rightfully so in my mind. I want to read a couple of little sort of sentences that came out of this decision. I will have it linked below, a Substack where someone does a more fine breakdown of the sort of Freedom Convoy decision that the courts handed down. But you don't really want to hear me the entire show just talking about these kind of minute little factual details of the case. Obviously, the Liberals are going to appeal this decision, and that's more of what I want to talk about. But before I get into that, I just want to quickly plug the fact that I, Wyatt Claypool, am running in the riding of Calgary Signal Hill for the Conservative Party nomination federally. If you live in that riding, except for the Greenbrier and Bowness areas, because they're being cut out soon when the boundaries change, if you live in that riding, buy a Conservative Party membership. My website for my campaign is in the description below, wyattclaypool.com. Go check that out, buy a membership if you want real conservatives representing these ridings. There's a lot of red Tories trying to take these strong conservative ridings, and I'm running against a lot of them. But here's some of the sentences that came out of this decision. I'm reading some of the excerpts that people have posted. So this is something that Andrew Shear posted. It's on point 7, because of course all these federal decisions, any court decision breaks down into the different factual points that the judge is ruling on. This is number 7. He says, on the substantive issues, I have concluded that the application of Edward Cornell and Vincent Gersey, the CCLA and the CCF, must be granted in part for reasons discussed below. In brief, I found that the reasons provided for the decision to declare a public order emergency do not satisfy the requirements of the Emergencies Act, and that certain of the temporary measures adopted to deal with the protest infringe provisions of the Canadian Charter of Rights. One of the aspects that was cited heavily was the freezing of bank accounts, freezing a pregnant single mother in BC's account so that she cannot buy food and medication for herself and her children because she happened to give $50 to the Freedom Convoy. That's the sort of thing that is just ridiculous that the Liberals are even trying to fight back against this decision because of. It looked really bad, and you can cite polling all day long showing, well, 60% of Canadians still think that the Emergencies Act is justified. Well, 40% don't, and that's a growing 40% that do not believe this. The 60% who believe that the Freedom Convoy was the Emergencies Act was necessary are not a particularly motivated voting bloc. That's kind of what I would consider, I guess, the normie kind of perspective that, I guess there was a big protest and, emergency measures were probably needed because they believe, or at least very passively believe, a lot of things that they hear in the media, that these are extremists, these are fascists, all those stupid fascism cartoons that came out from the different legacy media outlets saying that the truckers were coming to Ottawa to promote fascism, even though they were standing against vaccine mandates and lockdowns. They're very, very silly. Here's another couple points that were taken out of this decision that I just want to quickly talk about. And so number 4 point, it says, it is declared that the regulations infringe Section 2B of the Charter and declared that the order infringed Section 8 of the Charter and that neither infringement was justified under Section 1. And that you can keep going down here. And a lot of the stuff is that that basically what the government had done with Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland was effectively treating this protest as if it was terrorism. This is during the FLQ crisis in the 70s with Justin Trudeau's dad, Pierre Trudeau. With the War Measures Act, you could justify that there was people dying, there was a terrorist group running around hiding, behind, being hidden by members of the public potentially, and that they need curfews in place, and then they needed more measures to be able to hunt these people down. Even that was shaky. The fact that people are trying to say that it was justified in this case, that there was going to be a January 6th style takeover of Parliament, was ridiculous. If anything, it was actually the government officials having cops move in very reckless fashion that created any violence. And the vast majority of the violence on the sort of attack day by the police was not because of the convoy protesters. They mostly just kind of stayed huddled and made it difficult for the cops to get rid of them. The cops were the ones running people over with horses and whatnot. And this is where I get to the part about Justin Trudeau and the Chrystia Freeland declaring that they're going to appeal this decision. A horrifyingly stupid thing to do. Why would you ever appeal this? It just makes you look petty. It makes you look like you don't know what Canadians actually care about. Nobody thinks that this is like something that the federal government should be actively pushing on. The 60% of people who still think the Emergencies Act was justified are not voting against the Conservatives because maybe they thought it was unjustified too. The 60% who think it was justified are mostly people who don't really pay attention to this issue. The 40% who think it was unjustified are actively passionate about voting for whoever justifies that, about voting for against whoever justifies that. I just want to pull up exactly what Chrystia Freeland said. So what she had basically said is that we took these decisions with a heavy heart, that were not actions we took with any satisfaction, justifying why the Emergencies Act was used. Who cares if you had a heavy heart about it, Chrystia? If it was not the right thing to do, it was not the right thing to do. You cannot violate people's rights, the courts deciding that you did violate people's rights, and say, well, we didn't do it for fun. I didn't think you did it for fun. I think you did it because you didn't like people pushing back on your mandate policy and building up support against it. I can maybe pull up this video right here. It'll take me a second, but it is quite remarkable how parties cannot get off issues. The Liberals should be just moving on to household bread and butter issues. This is carrying a lot of their attention. This is sort of eating up a lot of their attention, because the Liberals have nothing else but the social issues, but the cultural issues. Their economy sucks. Their sort of woke politics are not appealing to anybody. So that the worst they can do, or the best they can do before the next election, is try and paint pure polity of the Conservatives as if they're, Trumpian Republicans and they want to have a January 6th style attack on the Parliament and they've supported this convoy. I guarantee in the next 24 hours, that will be the narrative from the Liberals. But I'm just getting the clip up here. This is Chrystia Freeland justifying the government's appeal of the Emergencies Act decision and saying why it was still right for the government to suspend people's rights.
It didn't just take issue with the fact that you acted. It took issue with how you acted and how you wrote the regulations you did, including in that PCO memo. There's a warning that the decisions you're taking and how you're writing them were open to constitutional challenge. Looking back, was there a necessary steps you had to take to minimize the constitutional impact of these regulations? And did you do a good job of respecting Canadian civil liberties in writing those regulations? Last question.
Look, I truly do not want to minimize the fact that we took these decisions with a heavy heart. This was not a situation we wanted to find ourselves in, and these were not actions we took with any satisfaction or relish. This was, however, and I want people to remember that, an extremely tense time. The safety of individual Canadians was under real threat, as Minister LeBlanc has pointed out. Our national security was under real threat, our national security, including our economic security. That was the reality of that moment. We explored many, many avenues to bring this to an end. This was an option of the last resort. We believed at the time that it was absolutely necessary for us to act, and for us to act in a way that minimized the physical danger to all Canadians. That was really important to us. We believed we were doing something necessary and something legal at the time. That was our belief then. That was our belief as we testified at length to Chief Justice Rouleau that continues to be my belief today. As our Minister of Justice has said, we will, confident in that belief, be appealing this decision.
Absolutely pathetic. The idea that it's a tense situation, we had to do it because we were so tense. That is a horrible justification. The idea that we did it with a heavy heart doesn't mean anything. What national security threat? Are they talking about the random 4 Coots guys who are in prison because they had like guns 2 kilometers away from wherever they were protesting? Yeah, probably a stupid idea. The government didn't even know about that at the time. So when they had actually when they had actually invoked the Emergencies Act, they didn't even know that they were going to have that sort of, justification or excuse fall into their lap. You don't get to just use emergency powers and hope that you find something out there in the streets that was like somewhat unsavory to then justify the entire thing. They trampled an old lady in a walker with a horse. How was that part of preserving Canadian national security and economic security? The government was locking people down and destroying the ability for certain truckers to make a significant income by going to the United States. What? No, if anything, they had hurt national security and our economic security. Think about all the money that the truckers actually spent in that area around Ottawa in small businesses, giving them the first dollars that they had really earned, substantial amount of dollars they had earned in like a year and a half. They actually saved some businesses. Businesses were speaking out about it. They were quickly attacked by activists, but they spoke out saying that this was actually really good for us. The Liberals, and this really demonstrates how they rule, that they were willing to call in the Emergencies Act. They were willing to use emergency powers because they felt bad. These people have a tyrannical personality to themselves, that if anything offends them, if anything gets on their nerves slightly, emergency powers, authoritarian government steps in order to make sure that they never have to have their feelings hurt. They never have to have any of their decisions challenged to ruin people's lives with terrible regulations and legislation. Horrible. These people I hope that they lose on the appeal. Even if they win, I don't think it makes a difference. The fact that they are even still fighting this shows that they're just not a serious government and that they're just trying to, I don't know, shore up their reputations, I guess. That maybe they're trying to like fight back against the now court approved narrative that they had acted in authoritarian fashion. Ugh. Anyways, I have my usual Give, Send, Go link in the description of this video below for the billionaire who's suing myself in the National Telegraph. Ridiculous, frivolous defamation suit. You can read about it in the Give, Send, Go link below. And also, again, I'm running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. Sorry if this video seems slightly more rambly than usual. It's because I'm actually about to go door knocking for my nomination. So I've been like pulling up the clips and downloading them while I've been here because, I got to make sure that I have as much sunlight as possible to go out and talk to people about why I'm running. So if you live in the Calgary Signal Hill riding, buy a membership, vote for me. A really good number 2 is Michael Kim, but there's like 12 candidates. A lot of them are very much O'Toole style red Tories, people who don't even live in their riding, all that usual nonsense that you see in the political world. Anyways, that should be it for me today, and I hope everyone stays tuned in, subscribe to this channel for my next video.